Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Godzilla vs. King Kong. Or just Godzilla vs. Kong. I honestly can't remember, if I'm being totally honest. As you can see, I'm joined by Godzilla and other Godzilla back there. They're going to switch places because, of course, halfway through this, I will get to the spoilers, or whenever I decide to get to the spoilers, we're going to switch things up because this is like, this nice, cute, fluffy Godzilla. That's real serious Godzilla right there. Look at those little blue scales. That's so cute. I just remembered that I had this. So I was like, I need to get both. And I don't know why I still have the tag on this, but for some reason I do. I genuinely didn't notice that until I sat it down and I was like, I never took the tag off. That's weird. But Godzilla and Godzilla. I enjoyed this movie. Like, the action was all freaking amazing. Okay? Like, all of it. Just amazing. And the rest of the movie, it was also there. So we'll get into that. I did like the movie. I thought it was good. I would say that, and it's been a long time. Honestly, I've only seen all the other movies once. So I saw the first Godzilla one time. I probably watched that action sequence a few times. I saw King Kong once, or Kong Skull Island, technically. I've seen that only one time. I probably looked at some of the action sequences at some point later, but I enjoyed watching that one. King of the Monsters came out. I loved King of the Monsters when it came out. Like, I know a lot of people had issues with it, like, couldn't see the monsters as much and stuff like that. And of course, all the human elements. The humans in any Godzilla movie, are like the humans in Transformers. They can all die and I'll be happier because I want Transformers just like I want the monsters. Like, I don't care about the humans. So that's how they've been. I think Kong Skull Island, I think that's why a lot of people like Kong so much more than the other movies, because in that one, it works a little bit better because technically most of the people in that are like dealing with a lot of serious crap. It's not like, admittedly, in the Godzilla movies, the stories do kind of suck. All the side stuff is pretty crappy because it's just like, it's not entertaining. In Kong Skull Island, they were all trapped on the island, so it was, even if it wasn't like, oh, here's Kong doing something cool, the humans were dealing with like life-threatening issues the whole way through, and it wasn't a lot of time for them to just be like, oh, here's this random plot line where it's just like, oh, they're like, oh, that could be dangerous, that might be dangerous, or this could happen. It was like, people died in Kong Skull Island. Like, they were in real danger, like, the whole movie. So I think that's why a lot of people see that one as, like, the number one movie. So I completely understand. But from a standpoint, for me, King of the Monsters was, like, the number one. And I still think I like it the most. I'll definitely have to rewatch it. But I remember when it first came out, I was like, I freaking love that movie. And this one, I don't feel the same way. And it's probably because of the fact that I like King of the Monsters so much. Before King of the Monsters, it was the 2015 Godzilla, and I kind of hate that movie because you don't see any of the action. They keep cutting away until like the end fight, which was great. I mean, he does his radiation breath like once in that movie, but it looked cool. Like, they finally did it, and I was like, oh, thank God, it actually happened at least. And then of course in King of the Monsters, he was doing that junk, and it wasn't like too much, but he was doing it, and they had the sound effect. And in this one, sadly, we didn't get as many moments where he did it, and we got the sound effect as well. Like, there were a couple of times where we actually see him do it, and you don't even hear the sound. And I was like, oh, that sucks. I love that sound. It's like, like, I love that sound effect in King of the Monsters. So there's definitely stuff that they did in that one, even kaiju-wise, where I was like, that was just better. And I think that's why I still found that one to be like, that one's still like my number one because of even the visuals. Like, some of those shots, there were like 7 shots in that movie where I was like, if I pause right here, that's a wallpaper. Like, that, I could put that right on my computer and I'm like, that looks gorgeous. And this movie has like 2 of those, I feel. And so it was like a lot of stuff with the visuals. Of course, there's way more monsters in King of the Monsters. Like, he's fighting, like, it feels like he fights like half a dozen freaking monsters in that movie. They have a lot. So I feel like the action, it's just more intense in that movie compared to this one, where it's like, of course you have Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong. Obviously, you can see there ain't no Kong around here, and I don't have a Godzilla shirt, but Grimlock is the best I got. So it's like, it is what it is. But I'm going Godzilla all day, like F King Kong, because he ain't, the most that he's ever done is get referenced by Denzel Washington, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm Godzilla all day. But I like the movie. I like what they did with it. The action was great. And like I said, the human element, it just is what it is. It just is what it is. And I will say this, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, despite the fact that Godzilla gets top billing and it's Godzilla and then it's King Kong, I feel gets way more in this movie. And technically, it's like his second movie, while it would be, Godzilla's third. So I kind of understand why they did that. And once again, it's Godzilla. Like, Godzilla's always going to be first over King Kong. So it makes sense. But it really was more of a King Kong movie, where like technically you see more of King Kong. And the other thing is, with Godzilla, I'd say maybe half the story is technically his, but it's human characters talking about Godzilla. Like the whole thing with the trailer is that in this, it's like, oh man, Godzilla is like he's suddenly the bad guy or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of how people are seeing it. It's like, oh, Godzilla did this thing, and so they kind of have to bring in King Kong. Like that's kind of the whole basis of the trailer. It's like, oh, what's up with Godzilla? And so then there's characters like Millie Bobby Brown's character, which is how they kind of tie into the last Godzilla, where they actually keep characters going. And it's like, okay, well, he wouldn't do that just for no reason. Like, remember the first movie where he helped us and then he left, and also that second movie where he helped us like 3 times over and then he left us and we were all good. Like, he wouldn't randomly hurt us for no reason. So technically speaking, he has a giant storyline in this. He's just not in it. It's human characters talking about Godzilla and them trying to figure out like, well, this can't be real. Like, this can't be, Godzilla. He wouldn't do that and stuff like that. And it's like, it would be cool if there was less of them saying Godzilla wouldn't do that and just more Godzilla. Like, that's just how I feel personally. I'm just like, I'd like to see more Godzilla and less people talking about Godzilla. So he's got a lot of story, technically speaking. He's just not there, excuse me, visually speaking. So that really sucks, and I wish we got to see more Godzilla in the actual movie. But when we do, he's amazing, and it is so good. And that's why we're going to get into spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie, you shouldn't watch this. I think the movie's good. You should check out the movie. If you really just don't want to know anything and you don't care, then just like somebody probably already did it. Somebody probably has the action scenes up already, and you can go check them out. And all the fights are absolutely amazing. But we're gonna get into spoilers. So we're gonna switch this up. My full radiation Godzilla. He glows in the dark, by the way. He's very cool. Put the fluffy guy back there. So we're gonna go right into spoilers. Godzilla is so freaking cool in this movie. It is ridiculous, okay? Godzilla all day, okay? It's like the hierarchy of all existence is like Godzilla. Just above that is Jackie Chan. And then everything else, like all the rest of creation is underneath Godzilla. So Jackie Chan, Godzilla, everything else that ever existed. And Godzilla was so good in this movie. Like, King Kong had some cool stuff. I'll give him that, for sure. Like, he popped his arm back in place in the ending fight scene. And, when Godzilla was standing on him and he's screaming in his face, he's like, okay. And it's like, okay, all right, that's enough. And he screamed back a little bit. And I was like, okay, he's puffing his chest. He's got some gusto, for sure. But he ain't the king of the monsters. It's Godzilla. And it was freaking sweet. Like, the first fight, he comes in. And, like, the beginning of the movie. And I don't know why people do this. Quick tangent. Why couldn't they just keep Mechagodzilla a secret? That would have been one of the greatest things ever. To just be like, what's happening? Who knows? Very stupid. Very stupid. I don't know why they do that. I don't know why. It's like, just trailer companies do dumb stuff. Because it's never really the actual people that make the movie that do that. Like, it's like, was it Terminator Genesis where they did that? I won't say what happened in case anyone hasn't been spoiled by it. And for some reason you also care. But they had a ridiculous spoiler. Like, literally, the twist of the entire film was put into the trailer. And, like, I think even the creator of the movie was just like, yeah, I'm pissed they did that because that was dumb. Like, why would you do that? And it's literally a twist within the film. Like, this is a franchise. Granted, no one cares about anything but Terminator 1 and 2 because those are the good ones. But still, it's a franchise where people know certain established things. And it's like this epic moment. And you just like, trailer, put it in the trailer. So that's what they did. Mechagodzilla, like, they had the glimpse where you could see Mechagodzilla. And then, of course, they put out stills and stuff. It was like the worst kept secret in the universe. And it's really unfortunate. I genuinely believe, as obvious as it would have been for people that watch it, because as much as I love Godzilla, I haven't seen a million of the Godzilla movies. I'll be honest about that. But going into it, like, the movie starts off, Godzilla attacks, and I was like, okay, so he attacked because they're making Mechagodzilla. Like, they have whatever they're doing, it has a Titan signal to it, and so that's why he attacked. And I was like, would I have known that? Would I have instantaneously been like, oh, that's what happened? Had I not known Mechagodzilla was in the movie? Probably, because once they showed the red orb thing, I was like, okay. I probably wouldn't have instantly been like, oh crap, Mechagodzilla, but I would have been like, oh, maybe, I probably would have thought they had, like, I thought it would have been like an egg. That's probably what I would have thought, like, oh, it's some sort of, like, super crazy casing for, like, a new Titan that they're building, but Godzilla could sense it, and then, that's what happened. So I probably would have gone that route instead of going the Mechagodzilla route. But man, they could have kept that a secret, and that would have been so, and it was still amazing. Do not get me wrong. It was absolutely amazing. And even the way they actually ended up explaining it, I was like, oh, that's not what I thought was going to happen, because I'm like, all right, well, how does this, because I think once we knew it was Mechagodzilla, it was like, okay, Godzilla's gonna fight King Kong. They're gonna be like, I hate you, man, I hate you. And then Mechagodzilla's gonna come and it's gonna be like, let's hate this dude instead. And we'll, the classic hero team up. Like, you never want the heroes to die. So the heroes fight for a little bit, and then they team up and they fight the new bad guy. So we all knew that was coming, and I was just like, well, how's that gonna work? Because the whole point of it was like they made Mechagodzilla, and I guess technically they were gonna kill Godzilla. They were, they wanted to be like the ape, the humans, make the humans the apex predator again. Granted, they were also called like Apex Solutions or something like that. Even the name of that company, like, it wasn't like Monarch is just like, oh, that's Monarch. This was literally like, we are Apex Solutions, and I'm like, that just sounds sinister. Like, it just sounded evil. But it was like, humans will be at the top of the food chain again. So I guess their whole plan anyway was to try to kill Godzilla. So I guess it could have worked anyway. They just would have looked like super villains if they actually did that. Like, it's a terrible plan. Like, they could not have possibly released a Mecha Godzilla and then fought Godzilla and been like, yeah, we're the good guys now. They could have, in a sense, in that point, because of course they made Godzilla seem like the bad guy. So I guess it kind of would have worked for them. But it also would have been super weird to be like, yeah, we made a Mecha Godzilla. I think a lot of people would have caught on like, so how'd you make that? And then as soon as they had to give out that, they would have given out some BS. Well, we can't give out all our solutions. People probably would have put it together like, so you guys made a robot Godzilla, and Godzilla, after like decades, suddenly decided to attack us for no good reason. I think people would have put that together. Like, there's no way that plan would have worked, and everyone would have been like, they saved us from Godzilla. Like, people would have figured that crap out. It was so weird. It's a dumb plan. But they go through, they explain it. They mention that, they have the skull, one of the heads from King Ghidorah, which was in the, I don't think it was a post-credit, it was like a mid-credit sequence in King of the Monsters where they had one of the heads. And the dude that doesn't show up, I was surprised he didn't show up in the movie. Like, his whole thing was like, he was kind of the dude from Monarch, and he wasn't in this movie. I was surprised that he wasn't there, because that was kind of his thing, was like, he was the big bad villain who was kind of going throughout the series. And so that actor didn't show up, and I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. Just to have that on the villain side of things, because they had like, Millie Bobby Brown. The guy that played her dad was in like 3 scenes in the whole movie. But I thought, the villain guy from the last movie would be there kind of carrying over the villain side continuing into this one, but he wasn't. But he bought the head. He ended up selling it to Apex Solutions, so they were using one of King Ghidorah's heads to telepathically link to Mechagodzilla. And I like the way they killed off all the bad guys. It was actually funny. I was like, man, if only they killed off all the humans, and then I just had my monsters. But all the villains just died. Like, it was like, okay, so we're going to do this thing. Okay. One of the human elements, by the way. How did they digitally copied a sample of something from Earth's the hollow Earth core, right? And I was just like, so they digitally scanned it, and the technology was so good that they figured it out. And I was just like, okay. But they go through. After that, we get our first villain death, because the guy's daughter is the one who goes down and is like, my dad gets what he wants. And I was shocked that she went like super evil, super fast, because like, obviously they're the bad guys. I knew they were going to do something bad. But when they were down there, they tried to even have the conversation like, you can't just dig into the core. And the scientist, she was trying to explain, and like, she didn't even get to go through like 2 sentences, and they're like, stick them up, and she was just like, hold them, and then all the guys just drew their guns on everybody, and I was like, dang, they didn't even have like the classic, like the back and forth argument before the guns are drawn. She got like 2 sentences in, and it was like, shut them up, please, shut them up, hold guns. And I was just like, dang, that was super fast. She was just like, I don't need to hear all that garbage. I was like, okay, streamline it. Then things get real chaotic down in the center of the Earth. Godzilla's super pissed. He was like, I'm sensing something, my spidey senses are tingling. Shoots all the way down to the center of the Earth. That doesn't affect anything. And so shoots all the way down. Kong ends up going out. That helps kind of save everybody else and gets rid of the monsters. So as they're trying to do all their stuff, she's in the first ship. Kong grabs that junk out of there, and it was one of my favorite scenes, honestly, because he just looked, and he looked in, and they showed it because they showed the scene earlier where like he could look in, and he, with his giant freaking eyes, he could see the little girl, and he was like, okay, these are the cool people. And he looked in and was like, oh, okay, I don't see nobody. And the face he made, and like she's screaming like, no, and he's just like, and he just crushed it and like tossed it. I was like, that was amazing, because it was just so funny. He was just like, and he just crushed it like it was nothing to him. And I just like that scene because it was funny to me, where it was like, dang, she dead. And then of course the Mechagodzilla thing goes wrong, and so the guy who's piloting it, he gets electrocuted, he's out, and then Mechagodzilla, because King Ghidorah, the pathways within King Ghidorah's leftover fossil brain gain control, I guess. I guess the only way to really explain it, like the leftover mental remnants of this alien dragon, this alien three-headed dragon that could control lightning, takes control, and so it severs the tie between the pilot and the Mechagodzilla, and it basically, they made a shell that ended up getting a real Titan soul. That's basically what happened. So the dude gets electrocuted. Mechagodzilla, who is now technically King Ghidorah, looks over, it's like, oh, that's the other dude, and just like, bow, it kills that guy. And I was just like, they just killed all of them. Dude gets electrocuted, he gets squashed, his daughter got crushed by Kong. And I'm just like, they just wiped them all out. All the villains are just dead in this movie. And I was like, that's interesting. But the action was good, and I really did enjoy that. So Mechagodzilla, absolutely amazing. And I'll say this, Godzilla won that first fight. You know, like King Kong was basically dead. He was just a big ass monkey dead in the water because they had to use the depth charges. It messed up Godzilla a little bit. They had to play dead. And I like that look where he was like, they're like, you know, cut all the sounds and everything. And he's just looking, and there's just flames behind him. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. And then he just left. Fight number 2 happens. Kong gets his, you know, his special little axe because he needs it because he ain't good enough. And so he comes in, he's got his axe, and, you know, he's kind of, you know, he's doing some stuff, and Godzilla's like, oh, snap, like, I didn't see that one coming. He got, like, some ancient, you know, former old school Godzilla scales, and so that creates all the axes in the ground, and it makes a giant image of Godzilla, which looked kind of cool. So this was, like, Kong's, you know, ancestors, their generation. They made this whole thing. They had like a big statue that was like another Kong, and they had pillars and stuff. And it was really interesting. I was like, they like straight up built this stuff, and it seemed like they were like full on intelligent. Like they showed that Kong, of course, knows sign language. That was a very cool thing. Cause I'm like, oh, you know, monkeys knowing sign language, like apes learning sign language. Genius. It was simple, but it made perfect sense. And I was like, I really like that. And of course, they used the characters well as far as what they could do. Godzilla in the water, you're screwed. For sure, you're screwed. King Kong, plus the axe, he still needed that axe. But King Kong on land, getting to swing around the buildings, and he, you know, he can dodge. He's got like, he's that middle ground character where it's like, you want speed and agility. You want like everything in the middle, the super balanced character. That's King Kong. You want like the powerhouse, but it's like your strength is like way up at a 9, but your speed is like down to like 3. You go Godzilla, because he's got like, you know, his radiation blast, and is like, that hits you with a beam, you're effed up. But he's got to charge it up. He's a lot slower. He's got those little tiny hands. Look at those. Look at those. So he's got to charge that stuff up. So I like the way they did that, where it was like, okay, King Kong is like, I got to dodge some stuff. Every time Godzilla was trying to charge it, he was punching him, and he kept trying to do it like a couple of times. And I was like, just let him get a blast off or something. So he kept using it. He does use it a lot in the movie, but I feel like not a lot during the fights. And that was the thing I didn't like. I wish we got to, because like he's blasting stuff all the time through this movie. But oddly enough, not as much in the actual fights, except for that one scene where he just does it like across the whole city, and King Kong has to just run. And I thought that was an amazing sequence where he's just like, just demolishing the whole effing town. Like this, all of Chinatron is just destroyed. And honestly, I feel like Warner Brothers was hinting at the fact that they technically bought the rights to Tron from Disney, because the main villain dude who was trying to have Mechagodzilla built, why was like their main office straight up out of Tron? Like, why were there lights on the ground that went up? That made no sense to me. I'm like, this room isn't that dark. It was like little circular, it was like, you know, rectangles in the ground with lights just shooting up. And then when they first showed the office, when they first like did the whole Mechagodzilla thing, they showed it. And so you see it from like a specific angle. I'm like, there's lights on the ground on this super glossy effing floor. He's walking towards what is literally just a big rectangle that's just a white light. It looked amazing. And then on the walls, all the signs and everything was like pink neon and neon blue. And I'm like, this is just Tron. It looks amazing. But it was super weird that they specifically built. I'm like, that's such a waste of money to just look cool. Like, it's always cool to see. But like, every time I see stuff like that, I always think of it in terms of like the actual world. And I'm like, why would he spend money on that? What was the actual value of having a giant rectangle that's literally just a light up desk? No reason outside of the fact that when we film this is gonna look cool. It's like, yeah, that makes no sense at all in the actual realm of that real world. It's just dumb, but it looks super cool, and it just has so many lights. I'm just like, did they buy Tron? Is Warner Brothers gonna be like, surprise, Tron 3 is coming out, and it's gonna be by us and not Disney? I don't know, but that's how it's like they were teasing us or something. But I like the visuals. It looked cool. It just didn't make any sense for like that desk. And I certainly wondered. I was like, I've never been to Hong Kong myself, but I was just like, are any of these buildings real? Is there just like a whole spot in Hong Kong where all the buildings have neon edges? I'm like, is that real? or did they just do that for the movie and this is like the Godzilla Hong Kong and it looks like that? Because I'm like, it's possible. Don't get me wrong, but it was like, is that real? So I'm gonna have to look that up. I still haven't, but I probably will. But I love the action. The second scene, of course, or the second fight that they have is like, okay, so round 2 goes to Kong because, you know, he brought out the axe and it was like Godzilla wasn't ready for that. He was like, I'm ready for some hand-to-hand combat, and Godzilla picked up a weapon. And so, you know, you had to cheat to win, but he did. He had his thing. And then Godzilla, he had to take his rest. He was like, okay, let me gather myself for a second here. He hit me with an axe. He stabbed me in the leg. He was doing some stuff. He stabbed it. They did the reference where he stabs it like in his throat. That's from a reference from the old movie Godzilla vs. Kong. Also, the scene where Kong actually first goes to Antarctica, where they have him like on the he's got like his big helicopter hammock deal going. That's also a reference because they have a scene like that where he's brought in. I don't think it was air balloons, but he's brought in flying. It's the same thing. So I was like, oh, that's a cool reference. And then him stabbing him in the mouth when he was about to shoot the blast off, him like jamming the stick down his throat. That was actually, both those were references to the old Kong versus Godzilla movie. So that was cool. I'm sure there's some other references that I'm not even aware of. I'm sure of that. But I like what they did with it. The Hollow Earth stuff was actually cool. Them going into the Hollow Earth. Him finding the home of his ancestors. He was like, you know, he was about to relax. He was like, I found my home. You know, my people aren't here, but I did find my home. Like, it was an actual door. Like, when he pushed an actual door open, I was like, oh, this is different. So they were, like, super smart. They built, like, these giant pillars and all this stuff. And so he's like, okay, I'm home. You know, I'm alone, but I am home. Like, I have something, at least. So that was pretty cool. And then, of course, you know, Godzilla shoots his beam down to the middle of the earth and everything. And they fight. And, you know, he wins, Kong wins, and then Godzilla was like, I caught my breath. And man, oh man, he whooped him so hard, and it was amazing. I was like, yes, destroy him, because that's what he deserves. You know, like, they were doing some rude stuff. Like, there were some things that were happening. We'll talk about it for sure when we get to Mechagodzilla. They were disrespecting my boy here when Mechagodzilla came in. But Godzilla beat the F out of Kong in that third fight. He was like, nah, I am king of the monsters. You shut up. And he screams in his face and everything. Like, he whooped him. He whooped him hard. He hit him with the beam at one point. He whooped him up. He broke his arm and everything. He basically killed him. Literally, they had to use the ship to resuscitate him. They had to give him, I can't think of what it's actually called, but they had to clear him. So, that's all I could think of. I'm like, they had to clear him. Wow. But it was good. It was like, he destroyed him. Like, Kong was dead. And then, of course, he's down. They're like, oh man, we gotta help him out. You know, like, Godzilla's not actually the villain. That Mechagodzilla's the villain. And so Mechagodzilla comes out, and King Kong is down. Godzilla has done his work for the day. He's tired. He's a grown man. He's tired. He's had his work day already. He's done his 9 to 5. He had the water fight. He's like, oh man, I gotta do another fight. And then he had to like regain his energy because he got hit with the axe and all this other stuff. And he was like, I have to do a third fight. I gotta show my dominance. And he did. And then Mechagodzilla just blows out the side of a mountain and is like, I am here. And then he just beats him so hard. And I was like, this is incredibly disrespectful to Godzilla. Like, he was punching him so hard. He had rockets in the arms. He had rockets in the back. He was using boosters to like do some spins and stuff. It was like, psych, and he spins and does a backhand. And then they had a part where he just stomped him. And I was like, wow, that is rude. That is so much. Like, there were just so much disrespect to the king of the monsters here. And it was like, okay, Godzilla, admittedly, he's kind of getting his butt whooped. He's getting rocked pretty hard. Like, he's got missiles coming at him, and then the punch comes after the missile. He's getting kicked. He's getting, like, all these dodges coming in. Mechagodzilla is just like, I'm dodging here, I'm dodging there. Like, he was just too OP. Like, too much stuff going on. And the scene when he stomped him was just so harsh, though. Like, he was just like, really? They had to stomp Godzilla? But, of course, they heal King Kong. He picks up his axe. They're going through. They're trying to do the fights. Like, he's grabbing his arm as, Mechagodzilla tries to swing on Godzilla. And they're both doing it. They do the tag team where they slam him through a building. I was like, that's so cool. And so then they're teaming up. But, he's got rockets and, like, he can move super fast because he's got jet boots and all this other stuff. And so, knocks down Godzilla, fighting King Kong. And then Godzilla's like, okay, how about this? Does the radiation breath, hits the katana, hits the axe, charges it up, and then King Kong is like, oh, I got you, buddy. Like, we're same wavelength. And then it's like a lightsaber. Like, it was just an axe before where he was like scraping off the edges. And then he charged it up. And that junk became a lightsaber. And he was just like, woof, and just would swing through legs and was just like hacking off the arms. And then he hacks his head off. And it was so cool. I would have liked if they did something where like the fight kept, like, they would have had to spend way more money. But it would have been cool if they had a moment where he like stabbed the axe in his head, but it didn't cut all the way through. And then Godzilla shot the beam one last time from the other end. Like, if they knocked him down and Kong like stabbed him in the head, but it didn't destroy it, like it wasn't going all the way through, and then Godzilla just hit it, and it just like the beam literally went through Mecha Godzilla and went to the axe, so he was literally like drawing a straight beam through him or something, and then it was like charging up the axe and like melting down. That would have been super cool. Like, I would have loved that like final blow, because technically once he charged up the axe, Godzilla was kind of out of the fight, and then it was all like King Kong, he finished it all up. But I was like, man, it would have been cool if he could only charge it up like a little bit, and so then he had to muster up like one final blast where like Kong just hits him in the chest, or like I said, hits him in the head or something, and then he just shoots the blast right towards the axe, and it just melts through because it's all going into the axe, and as it does, he just drags the axe down, and the beam just goes with it automatically. That would have been a super cool way to end it, where they both technically get that final hit, but it was still amazing either way. It's all said and done. Everything's good. Kong's like, dang, now I'm tired. And so then Godzilla, they have their moment where like Millie Bobby Brown meets her dad and all this stuff, and then Godzilla does his roar, and everybody's like, oh snap, what's about to happen? And King Kong's like, oh snap, what's about to happen? And so he screams, he does his yelling, and he's tired of him, and it's just like, and then Kong like, all right, like, my friend here says you're not the bad guy. I put the axe down. We're good, man. We're good. And Godzilla's like, okay, I'm tired. Don't bother me. And then he left. He just left and went home. And I was like, Godzilla's the best. That's the way it is. So I love that. And then, of course, we get the end, and it just shows Kong inside the Hollow Earth doing his thing, and he's just happy. He's home. Godzilla's wherever he is, and Kong's just in the center of the Earth, and he's just happy. Beats his chest. He screams. Boom. End of the movie. I was hoping that there would be something. I thought they would do a scene where it was going to be like, here's what happened with Kong in the Hollow Earth, and then I thought they would cut to a scene with Godzilla kind of just relaxing or doing whatever where he is, and that's kind of what I wanted, because I was like, I'd like to see what Godzilla does when he's not fighting. And then it was just like, no, that was just the end. And I was like, oh, it just felt like instant when they did that, because I was definitely expecting kind of an epilogue, like, okay, they showed what happened after they cleared out the fight and all that. Here's Kong, and then I thought they were going to do like a quick cut, here's Godzilla, and then that's the end of the movie. And it was just Kong. Like, once again, feels like there's more Kong than Godzilla. Unfortunate, but action was great. I don't care about the people. That's pretty much the whole film. It was amazing. The action is all you need. I'm gonna rewatch it for sure, especially that end fight, despite the fact that they were disrespecting, my friend here, with that Mecha Godzilla stuff. It was so rude, the way he was just getting punched in his face and just literally being stomped. But it was good. It was still really good. I do wish that they teamed up a little bit longer, but once again, we had all the fights were great. As short as the last one may have been, I would have liked to have seen Mechagodzilla have to actually fight more, I guess, because it was really just like he was beating up Godzilla, and then when they teamed up, he was winning, and then he kind of had like that little moment where he really did have to fight back, and he knocked Godzilla down, and that's when they had to do like the final little team up, for the axe. But it was good. Of course, I would have loved for it to have been longer. Who wouldn't? But all the action was fantastic. The visuals were definitely good. There was not a moment where I was like, oh, like this giant CG monster looks ugly. I thought it all looked really good. So I was happy about that, but it was good. The human characters were the human characters, but I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with the movie. I'm just really only going to go back for the action, though. Let's be honest. But had a fantastic time. The action was so good. I'm excited for whatever they end up doing next. We don't really get a tease going into it, because this was kind of like the end cap of their whole first thing was like, it's Kong versus Godzilla, so I don't know where more monsters would actually come from, but maybe some new ones could grow within the Hollow Earth, and then Kong has to deal with them, and then he can't beat them, and then they escape to the surface, and then that's where Godzilla is, and so they become this team of monster hunters, where it's like, if Kong can't do the first defense, then Godzilla has to come in the second round, and maybe they always have to team up at the end, or one of them could be stronger than the other, compared to like another monster or something. So they could do that in the future for sure. We'll just have to wait and see how things go, but I would love another one. I would love one where they just team up from the beginning. Like, if that was the actual story, like a new creature just maybe it just hit maturity within the Hollow Earth, and they just hadn't dealt with it for a certain amount of time, and then it just got big enough to be a real challenge, and Kong couldn't beat it, and then it actually escapes probably through that giant hole that Godzilla made, because I don't know how they're gonna cover that one up, but maybe it escapes straight to China again, and then Godzilla's like, all right, that was kind of my bad, I'll help out a little bit, and then, so they team up at the end again, and they have to fight this giant monster, or maybe multiple monsters, who knows. I want them to team up though. I would love to see some team attacks. They could keep the axe thing going. It would be nice. It would be a sweet team. Lots of destruction too. Lots of crazy destruction. But I enjoyed the film. Would love to know your thoughts on it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Whose side were you on? Like I said, for me, it's Godzilla all day. It's always going to be Godzilla over King Kong all the time. His movie was good, but that was probably that was really it. His movie was sweet, and I was like, oh, okay. It wasn't, he was taken back to New York or whatever. It was just a cool action movie. I liked it. But he's not Godzilla, and he never will be. So I'm always Team Godzilla all the time. What team are you on? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about, the movie as a whole. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.